What's up, Bulldogs? I didn't want to really say anything about the Charlie Kirk situation, but I feel like I should. I feel like I should say some things about this because a lot of my coaching clients, it's come up as a subject. A lot of people that I have talked to have been really disturbed by what's happened, but more so by the response of other people to what's happened. And I thought I would just share my perspective on this just to give you um, I don't know, like maybe a little bit of a way of thinking about things that keeps your emotional sanity, that keeps your mental sanity, so that you're not emotionally drained by what you might see as just a horrible side of humanity showing itself, right? Now, this isn't meant to be political. There's no need to get into the politics of things. I do believe that a lot of what's happening in society today is orchestrated specifically to divide people on race and on politics, right? I believe that a lot of this is orchestrated through social media, through actual real events that are happening. And I believe a lot of it is also designed to cover up the truth of things that are actually important. Like, remember Epstein? Did we forget about that already again? So here's what I would say about this, right? Because a lot of the people that I've been talking to, a lot of my coaching clients and guys that are really concerned about this, uh, the thing that's caused them to lose a week worth of work and to be so disturbed that they've had a hard time actually functioning is not that Charlie Kirk was assassinated in broad daylight. That in itself is shocking. It is shocking that a political figure in broad daylight in the United States would be executed publicly. That is shocking, right? But what has really disturbed them, and which is disturbing, I do agree, is how a lot of people have celebrated his death and shown no remorse and have essentially shown no empathy towards him or his family or his children, which is just amazing. It's shocking. It is shocking because I'm not going to call it evil, right? I think a lot of people are saying, "Oh, that's so evil. These people are so evil." What I will say is that they're outing themselves. That you can see what kind of person that person is based on when you have a person, any person, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what side of the fence that you are on, but you celebrate the suffering of another human being, justified or not, right? There's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with your humanity. There's something wrong with your heart. Okay, as a parent, right? As a what I would say is a good parent, my daughter, when I have to discipline her, when I have to have a discipline for her where something's taken away or she loses something or there's some consequence for her actions, no matter how rude she was, no matter how much she's upset me or what she said or done to me, as a parent, I take no joy at all in giving her consequences or discipline. In fact, I am saddened to do so, to have to do so, right? And the reason why I say that is because regardless of the situation, regardless of how horrible a human being someone may have been, right? And I'm not in any way saying that Charlie Kirk was a human being, a horrible human being. I think he's a very wonderful human being. From looking at his debates, whether you agreed with his political opinions or not, or you thought that some of his rhetoric was harmful, he was kind to people and he wished God's love upon them, right? Whether you believe in God or not. I'm not religious myself, but I can see from listening to him that he genuinely cared for people. Like, that's pretty apparent. He was not a violent man. He was not a man that really wished harm on people. He might have said things that upset people because they didn't agree with him and they thought that those things were harmful, to point out what he called obvious truths, or truths that he believed that were influenced by his religion or belief system. But they're not a lot different than most people who go to church in America, honestly, or across the world, right? And so what I'm saying, though, is that essentially you have people who would celebrate these things and celebrate someone else's suffering, and that is in itself a horrible thing. And the thing about it, and this is what I've said here, is that the thing to understand about this is that you can't hate. Part of the biggest issue that I have with a lot of the, let's say, ideology of the left, or kind of woke ideology, is that it's a hatred towards perceived hate. They're responding to hate with hatred. They're responding to intolerance with intolerance. And that's like fighting fire with fire. And I get it. Like, I understand the psychology of it, and I understand why people feel like the means justify the ends, but it's the most dangerous philosophy in all of humanity, is the means justify the ends. Because when you are willing to sacrifice your principles in order to create what you think is a better outcome, what ends up happening is that you lose the very thing you were trying to create. If it corrupts your soul in order to produce a good society, then it corrupts the souls of all of society, and then you cannot have a good society. And that's really the big problem here. And so, but what I would say is this, is that, again, you cannot respond to hatred with hatred. And so if you're sitting here and you're like, I cannot believe these people would celebrate the death of this man, the assassination, the public execution of this man, and the suffering of his wife and innocent children, and your response to that is one of hatred, to hate those people and to want to see them harmed, then it's not the same thing, but you're continuing the cycle. You're continuing the problem, right? And again, you wanting that or disliking them or hating them because of their celebration, is it at the same level as what they're doing? No, it's not at the same level. I agree there, right? Like, I'm a rational human being. I can see that if you're celebrating the suffering and the death of someone based on their political views and the suffering of their family, that is a level of hatred that is well beyond the hatred of hating someone who does that, okay? But it's still hate. And it's still not good. It's still not going to serve you. And what I would say about this is, I do not believe that there is evil. I do not believe in such a thing as evil. What I believe in is a lack of awareness. And I think that people who lack awareness, they do things that are evil. I don't believe that they are evil. I don't believe in evil, but I believe that they do things that to us appear to be evil, that we would classify as evil. Let me explain that a little bit further. So what I mean by this, and here's really where you can understand the psychology of this, okay? If you've been hurt by someone, if someone has harmed you, probably you've been able to get over that. Maybe you haven't, and maybe you have a lot of unforgiveness in your heart. If so, then you need to work on that for sure. I've done some videos on this topic, but forgiveness is something that benefits you. But in most cases, there's probably been a lot of times you've been harmed or hurt in your life, and you've probably been able to get over that. It probably does not affect you every day in your life. You know, like I said, some people are very bitter, and if so, you need to let that go. But you can let that go, and you can become free of it. But I can tell you, as someone who has done harm, okay, and I'm sure that you can relate to this as well. I can tell you, as someone who's done harm, that every harm that I've done, every hurt that I have inflicted on another person, every day of my life, I carry that with me, and it will never go away. It is a burden on my back that I will carry forever. It is a thorn in my side that cannot be removed. And that is the truth about harm to other people that you do. And so I would much rather someone harm me than me harm them, because I know that I harm myself worse than any human can harm me when I harm another human being. Okay? And that comes from awareness. That is the awareness that, quote, evil people lack. They don't see that when they're harming other people, when they're practicing hatred, when they're wishing harm upon other people, that is actually harming themselves more. It is destroying their very own soul, and it is a burden that they will carry with them for their entire life. It is one that cannot be dismissed. It cannot be erased. The sins that have been committed against you can be erased. You can no longer be bound by them. if you practice forgiveness. But the harm that you've done to another human being, it is always carried with you every single day. You will remember it. Now, yes, you can forgive yourself and you don't have to let it define you, just like as I do not allow the mistakes I've made in my life to define me, but I still carry them. I still know them. I still feel that pain that I have inflicted in a very real way every single day. And so the reason why I'm telling you this is because I want you to really understand that these people that are, quote, evil, they're harming themselves. They don't realize it, and it comes from ignorance. It comes from a lack of awareness. And if we all had this awareness, if we all understood that the harm that we do to others is actually harming ourselves, we would stop harming other people. And as I have gained this awareness, and I'm not perfect, I have found that I do not wish harm to anyone in this world. Not even the person who has done me the worst, not even the most vile, quote, evil person that I know. Because I don't want suffering. I don't want harm to befall anyone. Because I know that by doing so, by wishing it, by causing it, I cause harm to myself. And a greater harm to myself that cannot be erased. And that's what awareness is. And so that's why I believe that there's no evil, because I believe that if people were aware of that, if they truly understood that, and as people become aware of that, then they stop doing harm to other people. And so here's something for you to think about, is where is your awareness? If you are still in the stage of hating the people that hate you, if you're still in the stage of hating the people that do, quote, evil things, then your awareness is not exactly where it should be right now. And I get that, and that's okay. Just as I'm not going to pass judgment on those people, I'm not going to pass judgment on you. And that's what my whole message is that, look, I know what is wrong. I know how bad it is to celebrate the horrific thing that happened. So does everyone else. I mean, they should. It's self-evident, right? Those people that are celebrating those things, you don't need to wish any harm upon them. They're outing themselves. They're showing people what is in their heart. And they must have horrible lives. They must have a lot of inner turmoil. They must be carrying around a lot of pain in their own lives in order to be that kind of person, to celebrate those type of things, to take joy in someone else's pain. Like a person who takes joy in someone else's pain is deeply disturbed, very deeply disturbed. And so all I'm trying to tell you is two things. Is one, do not allow yourself to be tied into this, for your emotions to be captivated, for your emotional energy to be drained by these people. Know that it is wrong. Know that it comes from ignorance. Know that it comes from a lack of awareness. So don't allow that to happen and for them to harm you. And number two, don't be like them in any form or fashion. Yes, it's not the same thing, but don't be like them in any way. If you want to respect Charlie Kirk's message, if you want to respect human life and decency, if you want to respect the open discourse and the idea that people should be able to speak and have different ideas without being physically harmed for that, if that is what your ideals are, and you want to preach a message of love, you have to demonstrate that, even when evil is being done to you and to the people that you care about. You still have to respond in love. And it's hard to always respond in love. Believe me, it's a lesson that at the beginning of this year, I really had to focus on. But as I have focused on that, I have found that it is the correct way. It is the correct way, right? Charlie Kirk would have even said, and like I said, I'm not religious in myself, but Jesus said to turn the other cheek. And for a long time, that disturbed me. When I was a Christian, that did disturb me. I was like, give the tunic off your back if someone asks for it. If someone slaps you, turn the other cheek and let them slap you again. This seems like pathetic. I don't want to be that kind of person. But what I've realized is that it is actually quite noble. What I've realized is that it doesn't mean that you never defend yourself. It doesn't mean that you don't protect the people that you love. But what it means is that you don't repay evil for evil. It means that you don't fight fire with fire, because then everybody's on fire. It means that if you believe in love and not fear, because people always operate out of one of two motives, either out of fear or out of love. And if you are a person who believes that love is greater than fear and you want to operate out of love, you must continuously operate out of love, which means being strong, which means that you don't repay evil with evil, right? It means that you have empathy for, because if you think about it, also the biggest argument, which I agree with, that people are making in this case, and when you may have made yourself, it's a logical argument, is to say that these people are acting without any empathy. They don't have human decency. Like, how can you act this way, regardless of what a man said, regardless of what a man's political ideas were? A man cold-blooded murdered in cold blood in front of his family and in front of people in broad daylight, that you should have empathy for that. That's not what a person deserved because they believed a different thing than you, or they even said things that you might have thought were harmful. But these are the ideas. But if your main complaint is that they don't have empathy and that they should have empathy, basic human decency, but then you don't have empathy for those people, then how are you that much different? Yes, you're different. Yeah, it's a different thing. It's a different extreme, but it's a slippery slope. And that's how, those people that dance around and celebrated on Charlie Kirk's grave, they didn't start out that way. Right? They were radicalized. The social media, the politics pushed them down that slope to the point where it became normalized, where they were able to dehumanize fellow human beings because of the hatred that started from a small pebble and became a boulder in their hearts and took over their hearts and blackened their hearts. And so, do you want to be on that same path? You don't. And so if you cannot find empathy for those people, then you may find yourself at some point down that path. You might find yourself at some point wishing violence on the people who wish violence, being intolerant to the people who are intolerant. And then you become exactly what you hate, right? Well, what is that saying, that if you live long enough as a hero, you'll live long enough to see yourself become the villain? Don't become the villain.